In Dakar and 1 p.m. in Abuja. Many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Political opposition groups in Guinea voice strong rejection of General Doumbouya's probable presidential bid.
La charte de la transition est très claire là-dessus.
The transition charter is very clear on this. Neither the president of the transition, nor the members of the government, nor the members of the transition bodies can be candidates for an election on this transition.
The ECOWAS heads of immigration commit to abolishing the 90-day stay limit for citizens of the community. 6 West and Central African countries receive more than 5 million euros to support flood victims, and the continent's largest gathering on internet freedom, FIFA Africa 2024, gets underway in Senegal.
Right now, we cannot talk about freedom, be it online or offline, in the region without mentioning the situation that with what's happening in the countries that are ruled by military leaders, and the way that information is being manipulated and controlled in a way.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners in Gambia, Ghana, Liberia and Sierra Leone. Newslink begins in Guinea as opposition political groups in the country have expressed strong disapproval over General Mamadou Doumbouya's probable candidates in the next elections. They are threatening to fight his candidacy as they did in 2009 against former junta leader Captain Musa Dadis Camara. The political actors warned that after December 31, 2024, they will demand the departure of the military president and his cabinet, conduct elections and hand over civilians. It should be noted, however, that transitional president has yet to officially comment. HRTSU has on this report by Conakry correspondent Teno Alpha Ibrahim Baldi.
The response from Guinea's political class was swift after General Amara Camara, Minister General Secretary at the presidency, announced that the president of the transition could be a candidate after the adoption of the new constitution. For Suleiman Konate, spokesman for the ANAD coalition, there's no question of allowing Colonel Doumbouya's candidacy to prosper.
La charte de la transition est très claire là-dessus.
The transition charter is very clear on this. Neither the president of the transition, nor the members of the government, nor the members of the transition bodies can be candidates for an election on this transition. General Mamadou Doumbouya reaffirmed his commitment on the occasion of his oath and the occasion of the meeting he had with the partners of Guinea. If he dares to break his oath, he will be fought like some of his predecessors, and he will be forced to respect the law because we cannot govern against the majority of Guineans, and the opposition is very firm on this. For us, the transition in Guinea will take place no later than December 30, 2024. Beyond this deadline, the CNRD will not be recognized as a legitimate institution to lead the rest of our transition, and we will demand the implementation of a civil government which will have for this agenda the return to constitutional order.
Le retour à l'ordre constitutionnel.
The desire of the ruling military to reverse the order in which elections are organized, starting with the presidential elections, is not favored by the opposition. Konate argues that it is not up to the government alone to change the transition timetable.
Il n'appartient pas au gouvernement et au CNRD.
It is not up to the government and the CNRD to decide on the order of elections and the electoral calendar. We need a dialogue so that all parties will agree on this. This new imposition will not continue, and they know it. The same causes produce the same effects. We risk entering another cycle of violence and instability in our country, and we have done everything to prevent this from happening. But if the generals dare to cross the red line, he will be responsible for everything that will happen in our country.
It is against this backdrop that an ECOWAS delegation has been in Conakry since Sunday. Their mission is to assess the process of returning to constitutional order 3 years after the coup that toppled former President Alpha Condé.
A report filed in by WADR's Conakry correspondent Teno Alpha Ibrahim Balde and voiced by HRTSU. Elsewhere, Mali's Special Court on Financial and Economic Crimes continues the trial in the case of the purchase of the presidential plane and military equipment. Buhari Phyllis Sissoko, a former Minister of Economy and Finance, and several other co-defendants Tuesday appeared in court for the commencement of the proceedings. On day one of the hearings, the defense lawyers indicated that the court was incompetent to judge the case and hoped to obtain the release of their clients today. Here is a report filed in by WADR's Aliu Chamin Bamako and voiced by Augustine Kole.
The first day of hearings opened in a tense atmosphere. Buhari, Phyllis Sissoko, and 3 other people involved in the case were present in the dock. The trial began with a heated debate between the public prosecutor and the defense lawyers. The latter put forward a motion requesting the appearance of 6 witnesses, including 2 former ministers, but was rejected by the court. Jaingwena Tonkara is a lawyer from the defense team.
We have raised a number of exceptions, including the incompetence and knowledge of the case by the Bamako Court of First Instance, because we have estimated that at the time of the case, Buhari Phyllis Sissoko was a minister. If a minister must be judged for acts that are not in the history of their function, then it falls under the Court of Justice. This is what we have raised as an anomaly in this procedure.
Buhari Phyllis Sissoko, former Minister of Economy and Finance, and her co-defendants have been prosecuted for embezzlement of public funds in the case of the purchase of the presidential aircraft and military equipment worth over 69 billion CFA francs. Tonkara says the defense lawyers hope to prove their innocence in the coming days.
It's not because our request was rejected that the right was not given. The right was given, and the next day we will go back so that our clients can regain their freedom and can be declared innocent.
The trial will continue this Wednesday and is expected to last several days.
Augustine Kole with that report by WADR's Ali Chamin Bamako. More on judicial matters. A circuit court in Ghana's capital Accra has remanded into custody 39 of the 42 persons arrested for participating in a demonstration to demand an end to illegal mining in the country. Some human rights activists have not only criticized the police over their handling of the case, but also described as harsh the 2-week remand by the court. From Accra, Nadiri Tete reports.
The protesters who were demanding action over the illegal mining menace in the country were picked up on Sunday and Monday for participating in the protest. All the accused individuals are facing multiple charges, including conspiracy to commit crime, specifically unlawful assembly, causing unlawful damage, assault on a public officer, and defacement of public property, among others. They all pleaded not guilty to the charges. This was after the court, while refusing an oral bail application, which was opposed by the prosecution, said the defense lawyers can come with a formal bail application at the next court adjournment date on October 8. Some of the protesters accused the police of inhumane treatment while in custody.
Your press and then you take our pictures and videos to panic, to make our parents panic, isn't it? You want to see us in this. You want to see a 26-year-old lawyer in this. Because she said, stop till I'm safe. That's our only crime. Stop till I'm safe. 48 hours. Don't a lawyer. 48 hours. No food, no water. 48 hours. Over 48 hours. No court. Over 48 hours. Y'all should be proud. Emancipate yourself, so. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
A human rights lawyer, Martin People, criticized the handling of the case by the police.
You abuse their rights. I mean, I look at it and I'm like, is this 2024 and IG has led his men to abuse the rights of these people? That one, you don't allow them to see their lawyers contrary to the Constitution. 2, you don't allow them to see their relations contrary to the Constitution. Then 3, you fail to take them to court within 48 hours. I mean, the Supreme Court has already held that 48 hours is 48 hours.
Meanwhile, convener of the group, Oliver Baka Vomawo, who turned himself in, is expected to be put before court today, Wednesday. For WADR, Nadiri Tete, Accra.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
As a reminder, we're live on WADR.org and Facebook at WADR English Service. ECOWAS heads of immigration have committed to abolishing the 90-day stay limit for citizens of the community as they wrapped the 8th annual meet of ECOWAS heads of immigration held in Banjul, the Gambian capital. This commitment aims to enhance free movement and regional integration among ECOWAS member states, facilitating trade, tourism, and cultural exchange. Sankule Janko has more.
The meeting brought together immigration heads from the ECOWAS countries to strategize on improving border management and security while promoting inter-regional mobility. During the meeting, participants emphasized the need for harmonized immigration policies that align with ECOWAS protocol on free movement of persons. Keminana Nandap is the chairperson of ECOWAS Heads of Immigration Forum and Controller General of the Nigeria Immigration Service.
We're all gathered here as co-pilots in the sustained drive to foster greater regional integration, devoid of any encumbrance to free movement, residence, and establishment, that should be the hallmark of policy practice nexus for ECOWAS as a regional body.
For the ECOWAS Director of Free Movement of Persons and Migration, Albert Sio Boateng, the forum should pay attention to gaps in the implementation of this policy.
There's something we also saw. It's about labor migration. These are things we also need to start thinking about. Also, let us use this platform that we have to make a concerted effort in terms of implementation. Various member states are at different levels of implementation, but then what we need is the harmonization of what we all agree here, the decisions we make and we take.
The forum themed accelerating the development of ECOWAS biometric identity card and abolition of the 90-day stay limit reflects the regional organization's commitment to strengthening economic ties and fostering a more unified regional identity. The meeting also marks a pivotal step in advancing the ECOWAS vision of a borderless West Africa, paving the way for greater cooperation and development across the region. For listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankule Janko reporting from Banjul.
Meanwhile, 6 West and Central African countries recently hit by a massive flooding have received more than €5 million to enhance their relief efforts. The European Union EU aid will enable humanitarian teams on the ground to provide continued assistance to flood victims and address urgent needs such as shelter, food, and access to clean water. Francis Boniface completes the story.
Nigeria, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon are the beneficiaries of the special European Union funding after populations from these countries suffered heavy losses. Hundreds have died and millions displaced since the start of the rainy season due to floods, with the latest incident recorded in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital in Nigeria's northeast. The funding will enable humanitarian teams on the ground to provide continued assistance to flood victims, addressing urgent needs such as shelter, food, access to clean water, sanitation, and other essential services. According to a note that accompanied the envelope, Bamako, Ouagadougou, and Niamey together got hold of €2.6 million, representing half of the total sum. While Burkina Faso grabbed €300,000, Mali came second with €1 million, and Niger with the highest sum of €1.3 million. From the outstanding sum, Chad received €1 million, Nigeria €1.1 million, and Cameroon €650,000. The European Union recalls that at the beginning of the year, €232 million had already been granted for humanitarian aid and had also responded to the floods in Liberia, Guinea, Chad, Niger, Nigeria, Cameroon, and Mali.
Well, see, Francis Boniface to that report, and still talking about financial support. The United States has announced a $5 million or nearly 3 billion CFA francs funding program to support Senegal in its fight against corruption. These were the words of Anthony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State, after an audience with Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye. The meeting took place on the sidelines of the annual United Nations General Assembly. In the press release, the Senegalese presidency states that this support from Washington is intended to strengthen institutional reforms for better governance, end of quote. Washington's aid is also aimed at supporting youth and promoting transparency. Also, a 3-day forum on internet freedom and digital democracy in Africa is underway here in the Senegalese capital, Dakar. The conference, organized by the International ICT Policy for East and Southern Africa, CIPESA, in collaboration with Africtivists, aims to highlight the state of digital democracy in Africa, which is facing numerous challenges. FIFA Africa is the largest gathering on digital rights on the continent, with previous editions held in Uganda, South Africa, Ghana, Ethiopia, Zambia, and Tanzania. Aisha Dabo, Programs Coordinator for Africtivists and NGO promoting participatory democracy through online tools, will join us in the second half of the news to tell us more. And just before the break, the 5th Climate Health Africa Summit by the World Health Organization, WHO Africa, is taking place in Dakar. The 3-day conference opened on Tuesday with more than 80 delegates from 20 African countries, including representatives from ministries of health, climate experts, as well as regional and global partners in attendance. The conference is aimed at providing a platform for discussions and collaborations to address health and climate change issues in the continent. Ogeberika has more.
The Climate Health Africa meeting comes at a time when health is receiving increasing attention in the global discourse as climate-related emergencies multiply. In 2022 alone, extreme weather events killed at least 5,000 people in Africa, and drought affected more than 88 million people in 6 African countries, according to new data from the World Health Organization, WHO, on climate change and health. Dr. Mushosho Jeremiah, Team Lead, Climate Health and Environment, WHO Africa, speaks on why the Climate Health Initiative is crucial at this time.
We've seen that surface water is disappearing. What we're left is a bit of groundwater, which calls for you to be able to drill down to get that water. So because of droughts, we have seen malnutrition, food insecurity. We've also seen an increase in cholera cases because people are not able to access clean water in a manner which they actually should. Agriculture is suffering in terms of production, which is also leading to malnutrition and other issues.
Highlighting the strategies of WHO and its partners for addressing these climate-induced health consequences, Dr. Jeremiah says,
all countries who are part of this climate health, they will benefit from the action plan whereby interventions are going to be implemented while guided at the regional level. The actions are going to take place at the national level. For example, we are going to be strengthening our support for building climate-resilient health systems, which entails early warning systems, climate-resilient infrastructure, and also capacity building.
Climate Health Africa aims to strengthen the public health resilience of African countries and communities by developing the capacity of communities, institutions, practitioners and partners to understand and integrate climate change challenges into policy, socio-economics, planning and programming.
Ogeberika reporting there. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM Dakar, Senegal. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Political opposition groups in Guinea voice strong rejection of General Doumbouya's probable presidential bid. The ECOWAS head of immigration commits to abolishing the 90-day stay limit for citizens of the community. 6 West and Central African countries receive more than 5 million euros to support flood victims. And ahead in the news, the continent's largest gathering on internet freedom, FIFA Africa, gets underway in Senegal. We also have the press review, guest interview, and sports update. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Many thanks for staying with us. Seaport terminal operators in Nigeria urging the National Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, to invest in dock water training, utilizing the 0.5% stevedoring level collected for terminal operators. This call to action was made during the 2024 Dock Workers Day event themed Dock Workers, Key to Unlocking Nigeria's Blue Economy, organized by the Shipping Correspondents Association of Nigeria, SCAN, and the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Up next is Sankule Janko in Banjul with major and banner headlines from the Gambian national dailies.
Let's begin today's press review with the Point newspaper. And the lead story on the Point newspaper reads, Gambia produces first ever home-based textbooks for senior schools, with photos of a group of educationists, including Professor Per Gomez, the Minister of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology. Lawmakers refer National Population Bill for committal. This one reads, KMC is trendsetter, leader in area council's development, according to Talib Ahmed Ben Suda, the mayor of Kanifing Municipal Council, after it's a groundbreaking initiative, according to Commissioner General Dabo. Yankuba Dabo is the Commissioner General of the Gambia Revenue Authority. GT Board ordered to reinstate staff, pay back 50%. Let's move on to the Standard newspaper. The lead on the Standard newspaper has a photo of the Minister of Lands, Hamad N. Kebai, on the front page of Standard newspaper, and it reads, Hamad tasks councils to be proactive in revenue generation. Gambia to benefit from WHO's $1.5 billion health financing initiative. 4 private agencies licensed to recruit Gambians as domestic workers in Saudi Arabia. This other story reads, Gambia urges world leaders to uphold human rights at UNGA, that is United Nations General Assembly. CJ Dabo addresses training of custom officers on AFTA. And this other one reads, Gambian MP made raving ambassador for State of African Diaspora. Let's move on to the final newspaper for today, and that is the Fourier newspaper. And the lead story on the Fourier newspaper reads, Halifa Saleh explains PDOI's policy to salvage the economy to party members. Parliament adopts the Petition Committee's resolution on GT Board. And this other one reads, Market Master for Latrikunda discloses payment of 1% commission. I'm afraid these are the major stories making headlines on Gambian dailies, and it's back to you in the studio.
Many thanks, Sankule Janko.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this afternoon is Aisha Dabo, Program Coordinator of Africtivist, a Pan-African organization of bloggers, web activists, and change actors that promote democratic values through digital tools. She joins us with more on the 11th edition of FIFA Africa, the continent's largest gathering of IT experts, activists, entrepreneurs, government representatives, women and youth on internet freedom. The forum, currently underway in Dakar, Senegal, focuses on digital democracy. Aisha Dabo tells us why the theme is important, especially in a region where democracy is experiencing setbacks.
When the internet became, in a way, democratized, we saw that more and more African citizens were using several platforms, social media platforms, but also blogs then, to be able to express the opinions that we're not able to express on the ground because of the stringent and draconian laws that we have in most African countries, mostly passed by governments to silence their citizens. So this space that was a safe haven for many of us has become a threat for some, and they're doing everything actually to shrink it. And it has been shrinking. The civic space is shrinking not only in real life, but also online. Of course, right now, we cannot talk about freedom, be it online or offline, in the region without mentioning the situation that with what's happening in the countries that are ruled by military leaders, and the way that information is being manipulated and controlled in a way. So having a forum like this is giving possibility to discussing issues that maybe those people cannot discuss because they don't want to be the face of a statement that could put them in danger.
The core of this forum is actually to inform and educate people about what it means when one says digital democracy. But before then, what are some of the challenges or emerging trends that you can say for sure that Africtivists and partners have documented over time that threaten democracy?
What we've seen from, I would say, 2011 to date is the passing of laws on cyber security, cyber criminality, data protection, with little consideration on basic human rights. And the other thing is, states discuss among themselves, and most of those laws are similar, and they copy-paste. The last time I checked, there were at least 35 data protection and cybersecurity laws that were passed on the continent. So what we wanted to do is to compare them with the Malabo Convention on Cybersecurity and Data Protection, which is a continental convention that recommends and guides governments on what it should look like. say what you want. We all have frustration when it comes to ECOWAS and the African Union. But they have very interesting instruments that we can use. And one of the challenges is domesticating those instruments at national level in the countries.
Digital democracy is as important as democracy itself by principles and tenets. Explain to us what digital democracy is.
As an organization that believes in participatory democracy, it's a democracy where the citizen is at the heart of everything that happens. It's no longer a one-time appointment where you hold election, the person is elected, and that's it. Bye-bye until the next election. It's not that. After you elected, we are able to hold you accountable. We want to know what you're doing. We want you to be transparent. We want to have access to information. And technology and internet are things that make those things easier. You can reach more people using the internet. And being able to have real democracy is being able to have citizens participate, millions of citizens participate in defining the way they want their society to look like. You cannot talk about digital democracy without talking about digital rights. We have rights offline, we have rights online.
And this is what Africtivists and of course the forum hopes to highlight more, that they scale up this effort.
Yeah, different. There's so many efforts. Calling on people to, come and see. There's so many things to see, so many prototypes, so many solutions, innovation concepts that have been created and initiated by Africans actually that will be presented during this forum.
So what is the number of participants you are expecting at this forum?
We expect more than 400 people, both from outside, the majority from outside, and from Senegal as well.
And you talked about a solution. So what sort of solutions will be presented at the forum?
I'll give the example of one solution that we developed that has to do with cyberbullying. We, as Africtivists, we developed a number of 4 situation cards with questions and, 3 answers, multiple choice answers, where we want to put anyone that's using social media in a situation where when you face this kind of harassment or bullying online, what can you do? There's also several sessions on developing these guidelines on misinformation or guidelines on how can human rights defenders better protect themselves. And during the forum, there will be an exhibition. And the exhibition actually is important because sometimes that's where the partnership happens.
Aisha Dabo is a programs coordinator for Africtivists. In the sporting world, Ghana's Sport Minister Mustafa OSIWA reveals that the Confederation of African Football CAF is set to get back on course for the inspection of 2 stadiums, namely Accra and Cape Coast Sports Stadiums. This comes as the Ghana Football Federation, JFA, is racing against time to select a venue for the national football team, the Black Stars' next home game following CAF's decision to withdraw its conditional approval for the Baba Yara Stadium. Following the withdrawal, the National Sport Authority, NSA, has closed down the Accra Sports Stadium and Cape Coast Stadium, in addition to Baba Yara for maintenance works. And with that, we'll come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukidi and Maojuju for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a rebroadcast of Agenda Program 50/50 with Nadiri Tete, to be followed at the top of the hour of 1 p.m. by the second edition of midday, second edition of News in French, Info Chez Vous with Demba Amaran. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many